Hi everyone, it is time to look at the full moon in Leo in gate 29. We're going to use astrology, gene keys, and human design to look at the chart for this full moon. Let's start by looking at the astrological chart. The opposition between the sun and the moon is what makes up the full moon, and this opposition is happening in gate 30 and gate 29. In the 64 doors, we call the 29 the water goddess, we call the 30 the fire starter. And that is because in the I Ching, the 30 is made up of 2 trigrams of the element fire, and the 29 is made up of 2 trigrams of the element of water. So we have those very different elements that are opposing each other. And the interesting thing here is if somebody is born in the 30, the incarnation cross or the activation sequence that they're going to have is going to be 30, 29, and 14 and 8. We can see that here in the gene key profile, 30, 29, 14, and 8. And when we know about those gene keys, the 14 is part of the code ring of fire. There are only 2 keys in the code ring of fire. That's the 14 and the 1. So here we have fire element again. And then we have the 8, which is part of the code ring of water, which only have 2 keys as well. And that is the 8 and the 2. And if I remember right, in this chart, the 2 is the ascendant. So there is something powerful going on here between the element of fire and water, both when we look at the codon rings and we look at the actual place where the moon and the sun are opposing each other. What is even more powerful in this chart is that the nodes are right now in 14 and 8. In this chart, the only node that is in the chart is the north node, but automatically we know that the nodes are also programming partners. So when the north node is in the 8, the south node is going to be in the 14. And here actually, it's not really something that we see in this chart, but there is a big square that you can see if you draw a line 90 degrees from the north node to the sun, and then from the sun to the south node, and from the south node to the moon. So there's this grand square that you can see in the middle of the chart. So here we have a tension about where the sun and the moon are opposing each other and also our direction. And the north node right now for the collective is the 8. So this is an individual gate. It's about our own unique style. It is the shadow of mediocrity. So the importance here is to speak your truths. We call this gate or this archetype the influencer in the 64 doors. It is a Taurus gate. Taurus is about simplicity and the things that feel good for you, the things that are creating a foundation for you that is worth it. And here when it's the north node, it's a foundation that's worth investing in. And the 14 is really asking you, are you compromising when it comes to this direction, when it comes to what is illuminated for you right now through this full moon, what is culminating in this phase that we have been in? Has there still been some compromise? Are you ready to let go? Because the full moon, we come to culmination and we can look back and we can decide to let things go and let things die. So what is the compromise that you need to let die here? It's going to be something in relationship with you and you somehow, because this is individual circuitry, or maybe better to say you have the individual power to change it. You don't need anybody else. And even when it comes to speaking your truth and feeling into your foundation and how to invest for the future, it's going to be possible for you to do it on your own. There are 2 things that are standing out in this chart. We see that we have Venus and Mars together here in the 54, and then we have Mercury and Pluto together in the 60, and they are moving apart. Mercury is moving on, but it has been here for a week now, where there is a truth that is coming out about the structures that aren't working anymore. And I feel like that is also connected to the north node and the 8 of seeing what the new foundation is and the individual foundation that you're building for you. With Venus and Mars coming together here in Capricorn, it is a possibility for sacred marriage, of course. They're coming together, and how are they ascending together? How are they aspiring together? How are they communicating together? I feel that when we look at the gene key profile for the same date, there's something here, knowing that the EQ and the IQ is the Eden loop, and they are exactly together. I feel that there is also a possibility to be a bit blind and a bit stuck. We know that the second line is unaware of itself. You can see this these keywords in the low frequency about greed and aggression, and as a second line to project on the other or be projected on. So it can be challenging. It's not this sacred marriage that's just easy and there and thank you and you're experiencing it. I do believe that when we look at the Trinity of Embodiment, which is the SQ, the IQ, and the EQ, you can see that the SQ is in the keynote of struggle. And in the Ray Ching, the 38.6 is called misunderstanding. So I think that there is a possibility here to look at old misunderstandings that have happened either in your inner masculine and feminine that are projecting on each other some kind of way, or in your outer relationships. Where has it been that you feel like you want to use the other to climb the ladder or to be in a better position than what you are on your own? When have you been expecting the other to fulfill you? And how has that created struggle and misunderstandings for you? It goes even deeper back. When we look at the core wound in this chart, we see that the core wound is the depression of the first gene key, or the entropy. And the third line is about failure and shame. So I think that there is this opportunity to look back of those relationships where there hasn't been balance, where there hasn't been a foundation, where there has been a way of using the other in order to get what you want or in order to get fulfilled. So are you open to giving yourself the patience, the space, and the time to really feel into what's the purpose here? Why are you in relationship? What's the possibility? What are you a warrior for in the 38? And that can spark something new, something fresh, something light in the third line. I believe that that third line here is really tuning into the 30, which is the lightness in the gift. So coming out of some of the struggles, projections, using the other, misunderstandings, sterility of relationships, finding something new and fresh when you have let go of the compromise, when you have tuned into your true voice. And here you see that the purpose in the gene key profile is the same as the North Node. Isn't that powerful? That the purpose, the inner purpose, is the same as the direction right now. I also feel that there can be a tendency, because you have been in those Eden loops where there has been greed, there has been selfishness, there has been struggle, there's even been maybe depression during or after the relationship. So a part of us have said, it's not worth it with a relationship, I'll just be on my own. The first line can throw the towel and be like, there's no win-win here. They're just using me. That's what the first line says. It's a sterility. So I think that there is also a kind of melting that out, ice, and come into the 15, which is the wild woman or the wild man, to start to find and feel your magnetism, your fluorescence again. So looking at where do you not trust in win-win? That's also something to let go of for this full moon. The last part is similar to what we looked at in the last new moon, I believe it was, when we look at those tribal activations for the 37 and the 49. And somehow I would say that this revolution, even if it's tribal circuitry and it could have to do more about the bigger perspective of what's happening in society, I feel like in this chart, I want to tie it back to this Trinity of Embodiment, or the whole Venus sequence, and say that there is a revolution here that can happen in relationship, in the way that you're relating. There is a connection here between the 49 that feels like it's entitled to things. And that is very similar to the second line of the IQ and the EQ that says, fulfill me, and expect that from the other. So here there is a shift. The sixth line, the 49 has seen it all, the needs on all kind of levels, the reactions, the entitlement, that thing that happens when you still think something outside of yourself is going to fulfill you. It has come to a culmination, and it is time for a new way of relating. And the 49 is part of the cornering of the whirlwind, and that is the 55 that is coming into transit right after where the sun is right now. So that's the next transit in less than 2 days. So I feel like there is a possibility for freedom when we are becoming aware of those patterns in relationships that are leading us into depression, leading us into think that relationships are not worth it, or it's not worth it to speak our truth and nurture ourselves, because there's always going to be a compromise in relationship. All that can dissolve into something that is more constructive, where we take responsibility for how we relate, where there's a freedom of revolution. And ultimately in the sixth line, we weren't in the sixth line of the pearl last time where we were looking. The pearl is Jupiter, and the expansion here lies in really understanding the workings of that 37. That's the Jupiter. That's when we turn into the Pisces energy that is powerful right now. What is it to have tenderness in the highest frequency? What is it to have equality in the highest frequency? For me, I often speak about the 37 as the Christ energy, where we have one human being, whether it's a man or a woman, that has the feminine and the masculine in balance inside of themselves. And there is no struggle anymore. There is not just one, there is the union of the two that then becomes the relationship. So the pearl is just saying the expansion right now comes from going back and creating that inner marriage that's also going to lead to a revolution for an outer marriage that is possible. And that is how in your relationship you can feel the true magnetism, the true fluorescence, the true fertility of creating with the other. And the 15 is collective circuitry. So when you are in that rhythm and in that belief and in that embodiment of the 37, that's also totally what you are going to attract. And the first line is the keynote of empowerment. So that is also powerful. And just one more thing, this is a 4-6 profile that we are in right now. So it has to do with the vision, and the vision goes together with the purpose, with the north node of where we are going. And that is Taurus. A Taurus energy where the 4-6 tunes in to say, how can we simplify? What's worth it? How can we include our senses? How can we be in our bodies? That is how the core stability is created here. So how can you anchor spirit in body? Because that is the kind of role modeling that we're going to need as we're walking into the future with the new freedom, the new revolution, and the new embodiment of wholeness in each one of us. Thank you.